Hey guys, tonight we begin with something wonderfully monotonous and peacefully predictable. The daily rhythm of medieval monastery life, where time moved like honey and every hour had its sacred purpose. We're diving into the gentle, repetitive world of medieval monks, where the most exciting event of the day might be discovering that Brother Benedict accidentally put salt in the porridge instead of sugar. So before you settle in for what promises to be a delightfully drowsy journey, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Picture this. It's the year 1347, and you've just awakened not to the jarring buzz of an alarm clock, but to the soft, rhythmic tolling of a bronze bell echoing through stone corridors. There's no frantic checking of notifications, no rushing to catch a train, no coffee brewing in the background. Instead, you open your eyes in a small, sparse cell with rough stone walls, a narrow window that barely lets in the pre-dawn darkness, and a simple wooden cross hanging above your straw-filled mattress. Welcome to the life of Brother Thomas, a Benedictine monk whose days unfold with the predictable comfort of ritual and routine. The bell that woke you wasn't ringing for convenience. It was calling you to of the day, matins, the first prayer service, which begins at what we would now call 2 in the morning. Yes, 2 in the morning. While the rest of the medieval world sleeps soundly in their beds, monks across Christendom are shuffling quietly through darkened corridors, their bare feet padding softly on cold stone floors, their breath visible in the chilly air of early morning. Brother Thomas rises without complaint, though his joints ache from years of sleeping on a mattress that's essentially a sack stuffed with straw and the occasional feather. He doesn't stretch or yawn dramatically. He simply swings his legs over the side of his narrow bed, slips his feet into simple leather sandals, and reaches for his woolen habit, hanging from a wooden peg on the wall. The habit is brown, rough to the touch, and has been patched several times over the years. It's not fashionable, it's not comfortable, and it certainly doesn't breathe well, but it serves its purpose. Humility, simplicity, and a constant reminder that earthly vanity has no place in the monastic life. The corridor outside his cell is lit by a few flickering candles set in iron sconces along the walls. The light dances and wavers, casting long shadows that seem to move with a life of their own. Other monks emerge from their cells like sleepy ghosts, each one silent, each one moving with the practiced efficiency of someone who has performed this exact routine thousands of times before. There's Brother Matthew, who's been here for 30 years and can navigate these halls blindfolded. There's young Brother Peter, barely 20, still adjusting to the rhythm but eager to prove his devotion. And there's Brother Francis, the elderly librarian, whose careful copying of manuscripts has preserved countless works of ancient wisdom. They move together through the cloister, past the covered walkway that surrounds the monastery's central courtyard. Even in the darkness, you can make out the shape of the herb garden where Brother Augustine grows chamomile, mint, and lavender. The air carries the faint scent of these herbs, mixed with the ever-present smell of wood smoke from the kitchen fires, and the musty odour of old stone that never quite dries. The chapel is their destination, and it's here that the true rhythm of monastic life begins. The chapel itself is simple, but beautiful in its austerity. Stone arches stretch upward into shadows, and a few oil lamps cast a warm, golden light over wooden choir stalls, arranged in 2 facing rows. There's no elaborate decoration, no stained glass windows depicting saints in brilliant colours, just clean lines, honest materials, and an atmosphere of profound quiet that seems to absorb sound rather than echo it. Brother Thomas takes his place in the choir stalls, opens his worn psalter, and prepares to begin the first of what will be 7 prayer services throughout the day. His voice joins with the others in a low, melodic chant that has remained unchanged for centuries. The Latin words flow like water, each syllable carefully pronounced, each note perfectly pitched to blend with his brothers' voices. There's something hypnotic about this chanting, something that seems to slow time itself and create a pocket of eternity in the midst of an ordinary Tuesday morning. Matins lasts about an hour, during which the monks recite psalms, read passages from scripture, and sing ancient hymns that their predecessors sang generations before them. There's no hurrying, no checking of timepieces, no anxiety about what needs to be accomplished later in the day. Time in the monastery moves differently. It's measured not in minutes and deadlines, but in the gentle progression of prayer, work, and rest that Benedict of Nursia prescribed in his famous rule more than 800 years ago. When Matins concludes, the monks don't immediately disperse. They remain in the chapel for a period of silent meditation, each man alone with his thoughts and prayers. Brother Thomas closes his eyes and lets his mind settle into the familiar patterns of contemplation. He might reflect on a particular passage from Scripture, or simply rest in the presence of the divine, letting the silence wash over him like a gentle tide. Outside, the world is still dark, still sleeping, still unaware that in monasteries across Europe, thousands of men are already deep in their daily dialogue with eternity. After meditation comes Lauds, the second prayer service of the day, timed to coincide with the first hints of dawn creeping through the chapel's small windows. The office of Lauds is shorter than Matins, focusing on psalms of praise and thanksgiving for the gift of a new day. As the service progresses, the darkness outside gradually gives way to the soft grey light of early morning, and by the time the final prayers are completed, you can make out the shapes of trees and buildings in the monastery courtyard. Now comes one of the most peaceful interludes in the monastic day. Between Lauds and the next service, Prime, there's a blessed hour of quiet activity. Some monks return to their cells for additional prayer or reading. Others make their way to the scriptorium, where Brother Francis and his assistants spend their days carefully copying manuscripts, their quill pens scratching softly against parchment as they preserve the wisdom of ages past. Still others head to the kitchen, where Brother Anselm is already preparing the simple meal that will break the night's fast. Brother Thomas chooses to spend this time in the garden. Even though it's barely light, he can make out the neat rows of vegetables, the carefully tended herb beds, and the fruit trees that line the monastery walls. Gardening isn't just practical work for the monks, it's a form of meditation, a way of participating in God's creative work by nurturing the plants that will feed the community and provide medicine for the sick. He kneels beside a row of leeks, pulling weeds with gentle, methodical movements, his hands growing damp with morning dew as he works. The silence isn't complete. There are small sounds that punctuate the quiet. The soft scraping of his hands in the soil, the distant sound of Brother Anselm chopping vegetables in the kitchen, the gentle rustle of leaves as a morning breeze stirs the apple trees. These aren't distractions from prayer. They're part of it. Small reminders of the intricate web of life that surrounds the monastery and connects it to the wider world beyond its walls. As Brother Thomas works in the garden, the monastery bell tower begins to mark the passage of time with its steady bronze voice. The bell ringer, Brother Columba, has held this responsibility for 15 years, and his timing is so precise that neighbouring villages have come to set their own routines by the sound of the monastery bells. There's something deeply comforting about this reliability, this certainty that no matter what chaos might be unfolding in the outside world, the bells of the monastery will continue their ancient rhythm. The call to prime arrives just as the sun crests the horizon, painting the stone walls of the monastery in soft shades of gold and amber. Brother Thomas brushes the soil from his hands, offers a quiet prayer of gratitude for the morning's work, and joins the familiar procession back to the chapel. His knees are slightly damp from kneeling in the garden, and there's a satisfying ache in his lower back that speaks of honest labour, begun before most of the world has even stirred. Prime is the shortest of the day's offices, lasting perhaps 20 minutes. It's a service of preparation, asking for divine guidance and strength for the day ahead. The psalms sung during Prime have a different character from those of Matins and Lauds. Where the earlier services carried the weight of night and the joy of dawn, Prime has a practical quality, like rolling up one's sleeves before beginning important work. The monks' voices are clearer now, more alert, as their bodies fully awaken to the rhythms of the day. Following Prime comes the first meal of the day, though calling it breakfast would be generous. In the refectory, a long stone hall with simple wooden tables and benches, the monks gather for a meal that is deliberately modest. Brother Anselm has prepared porridge made from barley and oats, flavoured with a touch of honey from the monastery's own beehives. There's fresh bread, still warm from the ovens, and perhaps some cheese made from milk provided by the monastery's small herd of goats. The portions are adequate but not abundant, carefully calculated to nourish the body without indulging the appetite. What makes this meal particularly soothing is not the food itself, but the manner in which it's consumed. The monks eat in complete silence, listening instead to one of their brothers reading aloud from a spiritual text. Today, Brother Jerome reads from the Conferences of John Cassian, his voice carrying clearly through the hall as he describes the practices of the Desert Fathers. The only other sounds are the gentle clink of wooden spoons against clay bowls, the soft scraping of bread being broken, and the occasional creak of the wooden benches as someone shifts position. This silence isn't oppressive or awkward. It's contemplative, allowing each monk to reflect on the words being read while nourishing his body for the work ahead. Brother Thomas chews slowly, savouring the simple flavours and letting his mind absorb the ancient wisdom flowing from Brother Jerome's clear voice. There's no rush, no urgency, no anxiety about tasks waiting to be completed. The morning meal is its own form of prayer, a quiet celebration of sustenance and community. After breakfast comes one of the most distinctive aspects of Benedictine life, the period known as work prayer. Saint Benedict's rule prescribed that monks should divide their time between prayer, study, and manual labour, believing that each activity strengthened the others. For Brother Thomas, this morning's work assignment takes him to the monastery's brewery, where Brother Augustine is overseeing the production of ale for the community and for sale to nearby villages. The brewery is housed in a stone building adjacent to the kitchen, filled with large wooden vats, copper kettles, and the sweet, yeasty aroma of fermentation. Medieval monasteries were often centres of brewing innovation, and Brother Augustine takes quiet pride in the quality of his ales. He spent 20 years perfecting recipes, adjusting the blend of barley, hops and herbs to create beverages that are both nourishing and flavourful. The work is methodical and precise, requiring attention to detail, but allowing plenty of time for meditation and prayer. Brother Thomas begins his morning by helping to stir a large vat of fermenting ale, using a long wooden paddle to ensure the mixture remains properly aerated. The motion is rhythmic and soothing, like a physical form of prayer, and he finds his breathing naturally synchronizing with the slow, circular movement of the paddle. Brother Augustine moves quietly around the brewery, checking the progress of various batches, taking notes on a wax tablet, occasionally humming a fragment of penchant under his breath. The work continues steadily, but without haste. There are no production quotas to meet, no supervisors checking on efficiency, no pressure to maximize output. The goal is simply to do the work well, with attention and care, as an offering to the divine and a service to the community. When one task is completed, another naturally presents itself. When a moment of rest is needed, it's taken without guilt or anxiety. Around mid-morning, the bell calls the monks to terce, the third of the day's 7 offices. They wash their hands in stone basins filled with cold well water, dry them on rough linen towels, and make their way once again to the chapel. By now, the sun has risen high enough to send shafts of golden light through the chapel's windows, illuminating motes of dust that dance in the still air like tiny prayers made visible. Terce is another brief service, focusing on prayers for wisdom and understanding as the day's work continues. The psalms are familiar, worn smooth by countless repetitions, and the monks sing them with the comfortable ease of old friends sharing a familiar conversation. There's Brother Matthew's slightly wavering tenor, Brother Peter's clear young voice, and the deep bass rumble of Brother Francis, whose years of age have only enriched the resonance of his singing. After terce, the monks return to their various labours. Brother Thomas heads to the scriptorium, where he's been slowly copying a treatise on agriculture written by a Roman author named Columella. The work requires absolute concentration and perfect penmanship, as a single mistake could ruin hours of careful labour. He settles at his writing desk, a simple wooden table with a slanted top, and arranges his materials. Sheets of parchment made from carefully prepared sheepskin, several quill pens cut from goose feathers, bottles of black ink mixed from oak galls and iron, and a sharp knife for making corrections and trimming the pens. The scriptorium itself is designed to optimize the conditions for writing and reading. Large windows face north to provide steady, even light throughout the day. The walls are painted white to reflect and amplify the available illumination. Each writing desk is positioned to minimize shadows and reduce eye strain. The atmosphere is one of profound quiet, broken only by the soft scratch of quills on parchment and the occasional sound of a page being turned. Brother Thomas dips his quill in the ink and begins to form the first letters of the morning's work. His handwriting is clear and regular, each letter carefully shaped according to the standards he learned during his years as a novice. The Latin text flows beneath his pen in neat, even lines, and he finds himself absorbed not just in the mechanics of copying, but in the meaning of the words he's transcribing. Columella's advice on soil preparation and crop rotation seems to speak directly to his own experience in the monastery garden, creating a connection across centuries between one practitioner of agricultural arts and another. The morning passes quietly in this manner, with each monk absorbed in his own form of contemplative labour. In the kitchen, Brother Anselm prepares vegetables for the midday meal, his knife moving in steady rhythm as he reduces onions, carrots, and herbs to uniform pieces. In the infirmary, Brother Luke tends to an elderly monk suffering from a persistent cough, brewing medicinal teas from herbs grown in the monastery garden, and offering comfort through gentle presence and prayer. The sound of the bell, calling the community to sext, the midday office, filters through the scriptorium windows like a gentle reminder that even the most absorbing work must yield to the rhythm of communal prayer. Brother Thomas carefully wipes his quill clean and places it in its holder, then covers his morning's work with a clean cloth to protect the still drying ink from dust and curious insects. The transition from solitary labour to communal worship happens without jarring or hurry. It's simply the next movement in the day's carefully orchestrated symphony. Sext takes place as the sun reaches its highest point in the sky, flooding the chapel with warm golden light that transforms the simple stone interior into something almost ethereal. The service focuses on prayers for perseverance and strength during the heat of the day, both literal and metaphorical. The psalms sung during Sext have a different quality from those of the early morning offices, carrying a sense of steady determination rather than the fresh hope of dawn or the grateful peace of evening. After Sext comes the main meal of the day, served in the refectory while Brother Jerome continues his reading from John Cassian. Today's fare is more substantial than the morning's simple porridge. Brother Anselm has prepared a hearty soup made from beans, barley, and vegetables grown in the monastery gardens, seasoned with herbs and served with thick slices of dark bread still warm from the ovens. There might be a small portion of cheese, perhaps some preserved fruit from the monastery's orchards, and certainly a cup of the ale that Brother Augustine has been brewing with such care. The silence during the meal remains profound, but it's a comfortable silence, like that of a family gathered around a familiar table. Each monk eats slowly and deliberately, savouring not just the flavours, but the sense of community that comes from sharing simple food, prepared with love and attention. The reading continues throughout the meal, Brother Jerome's voice rising and falling with the natural cadences of the ancient text, weaving wisdom into the very act of nourishment. Following the midday meal comes one of the most cherished periods of the monastic day, the time of rest and reflection known as the siesta. This isn't the lazy afternoon nap of popular imagination, but rather a deliberate pause in the day's activities, a time for the body to restore itself and the mind to process the morning's experiences. Some monks return to their cells for quiet prayer or contemplation. Others find peaceful spots in the cloister or garden where they can sit quietly and let their thoughts settle like dust after a gentle breeze. Brother Thomas chooses to spend this time in the monastery library, a treasure house of manuscripts and codices that represent centuries of accumulated wisdom. The library is housed in a stone building with thick walls that keep the interior cool, even on the warmest days. Tall shelves line the walls, filled with books bound in leather and wood, their spines marked with carefully lettered titles in Latin, Greek, and occasionally other languages. The air smells of parchment, leather, and the faint sweetness of beeswax used to preserve the bindings. He selects a volume of Augustine's Confessions and settles into a comfortable chair near one of the large windows. The afternoon light slants through the glass, creating perfect conditions for reading without straining the eyes. The book falls open naturally to a familiar passage, and Brother Thomas begins to read, not hurrying through the text, but allowing each sentence to unfold in his mind like a flower opening to the sun. Augustine's words about the restless heart that finds no peace until it rests in God seem to speak directly to his own experience, creating a dialogue across the centuries between two souls seeking the same eternal truths. The library is not completely silent during this afternoon period. There are small, comfortable sounds that actually enhance the peaceful atmosphere. The soft whisper of pages being turned, the gentle creak of wooden chairs as readers shift position, the distant sound of bees humming in the herb garden beyond the windows. Brother Francis works quietly at his desk, comparing two different versions of the same text to identify copying errors, his concentration so complete that he seems almost to have merged with the manuscript before him. As the afternoon progresses, other monks drift in and out of the library. Brother Matthew arrives with a question about a passage in Boethius that has puzzled him during his private study. Brother Peter seeks guidance on a theological point that arose during his morning reading. Each interaction is conducted in whispers, with the careful courtesy that comes from years of living in close community. There's no urgency in these scholarly consultations, no pressure to reach quick conclusions. The pursuit of understanding is seen as a lifelong journey rather than a destination to be reached. The bell calling the monks to none, the afternoon office, rings out just as Brother Thomas reaches the end of a particularly moving chapter in Augustine's work. He marks his place with a silk ribbon, closes the book gently, and joins the familiar procession to the chapel. By now, the sun has begun its slow descent toward the horizon, and the light in the chapel has taken on a warmer, more golden quality that seems to wrap the stone walls in gentle embrace. None is brief, but deeply contemplative, focusing on prayers of gratitude for the day's blessings and petitions for wisdom in the hours remaining before evening. The psalms sung during this service have a reflective quality, like the thoughts of someone pausing in the midst of a long journey to appreciate the beauty of the landscape around them. The monks' voices blend in harmonies that seem to rise naturally from their shared experience, creating music that is both earthly and transcendent. After none, the afternoon work period begins, and Brother Thomas finds himself assigned to the monastery's vegetable garden. The sun is still warm, but no longer harsh, creating perfect conditions for the careful tending that the garden requires. He works alongside Brother Augustine, who divides his time between brewing and horticulture with the easy competence of someone who understands that both activities are forms of nurturing life. The garden is laid out in neat geometric patterns that reflect the Benedictine love of order and beauty. Rows of cabbages alternate with beds of onions and leeks. Herb gardens are arranged by medicinal properties, with healing plants grouped near the infirmary and culinary herbs closer to the kitchen. Fruit trees line the walls, their branches heavy with apples, pears, and plums that will be harvested in the coming weeks and preserved for winter sustenance. Brother Thomas kneels beside a row of carrots, carefully thinning the young plants to give the survivors more room to grow. The work is methodical and satisfying, requiring attention but not intense concentration, allowing his mind to wander through the day's readings and prayers. His hands grow warm in the afternoon sun, and the rich smell of earth and growing things creates an atmosphere of profound peace and contentment. The garden work continues at a steady but unhurried pace. There's no sense that tasks must be completed by a certain time, no anxiety about productivity or efficiency. The goal is simply to tend the plants with care and attention, trusting that proper stewardship will yield the harvest the community needs. When Brother Augustine notices that the bean plants need support, he and Brother Thomas work together to construct simple trellises from branches cut from the monastery's woodlot, their collaboration wordless, but perfectly coordinated through years of shared labour. As the evening bells begin to toll across the monastery walls, Brother Thomas and his brothers make their way through the final prayers of the day, their voices joining in vespers and compline, before settling into the profound silence of the great silence that will carry them through until matins begins the cycle anew. In this gentle rhythm of prayer, work, and rest, we find something our modern world has largely forgotten: the profound peace that comes from surrender to routine, from finding the sacred in the mundane, and from allowing time to move at the speed of contemplation rather than anxiety. Perhaps there's wisdom in these ancient ways, a reminder that true contentment isn't found in excitement or novelty, but in the steady, reliable rhythm of days well lived and hours well spent. Sleep well, and may your dreams be as peaceful as a monastery garden at twilight.